Right now, let's get you your top story as the defense team is shaping up for defendant Tyler Robinson, the man who's accused of killing conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Now, we're learning that one of Robinson's attorneys represented Lyle Menendez during his first criminal trial.
Jury's back in the jury box. Now we'll have the beginning of the defense argument. Mr. Burt.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, when it boils down to it, when all the lawyers in this case finally stop talking, I think you're going to see that the real issue in this case is what was going on inside the minds of two young men on August 20th, 1989.
That's attorney Michael Burt delivering the closing arguments back in 1993 in the trial that ended in a mistrial. So that was trial number one for the brothers. Now, Burt will be serving as co-counsel along with attorney Richard Novak in the capital case against defendant Tyler Robinson. Now, Burt appeared in court. There he is in the middle there earlier this week with Novak and lead counsel, who is local counsel in Utah, Kathy Nestor, who we've seen on Corey Richards' case. We talked about that recently. Now, Burt has also represented Eric Robert Rudolph. That name sounds familiar. He's the man convicted of killing one person and injuring over 100 others when he planted a pipe bomb at the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta. He's also defended Richard Ramirez, the serial killer known as the Night Stalker, who murdered at least 15 people back in the 80s. Michael Burt worked for the San Francisco Public Defender's Office for 24 years, and there he handled numerous death penalty cases. So, how will this high-powered attorney affect Tyler Robinson's trial? Let's bring in our legal eagles to talk about that. Both of them former prosecutors currently practicing criminal defense work in the private sector, Matt Timpanek and Franz Borchardt. Good morning to you both. Franz, let me begin with you. What do you think the impact is with this attorney?
So I think what you have is you have a very high stakes criminal prosecution, the highest stakes in our system, death penalty. And if you're going to do that to ensure everybody gets it right, you've got to have very competent and effective counsel. And this guy is that. He's a pro. He's handled these kind of cases before, in as much as I'm uncomfortable saying these kind of cases. And so, you know, everybody should be happy that he's the one representing this individual, because look, if the state or the federal government ultimately gets a conviction, he will have protected that individual's rights. It should be a clean record, and that's a good thing. Also, due process requires it. So, you know, I'm not surprised. I think this is the right instrument for the task.
Oh, I love how you said that, Franz. Thank you. Matt Timpanek, of course, I want you to weigh in now. Same question. What do you think the impact is with attorney Michael Burt here?
What you are getting is substantial experience. This is not a case where it's going to be evidentiary, where it's going to be like, did he do it or not do it? The first question is, I think they're going to go insanity. So you have somebody who is very skilled and experienced in arguing an insanity defense. And then on top of that, it's going to be the death penalty phase. That's where this case is ultimately going to be decided. Is Tyler Robinson going to spend the remainder of his life in prison for these crimes, if he's convicted, or is he going to face execution, which in Utah could be something like the firing squad? And when you need this type of situation, when the stakes are this high, you need somebody who's exceptionally experienced, and that's what the defendant got in this case.
Well said, Matt. You know, something interesting. So he's out of county. Both he and Richard Novak are out. They're in California. These are well-known California lawyers. Franz, your thoughts on that? Why not get someone very seasoned in Utah to work on this?
So I would guess that part of it is the severity of the case. California is not exactly in Egypt compared to Utah, but that said, we don't know if these guys had contractual agreements with that county. We don't know if it was hey, we don't have the resources to defend this level. And look, to be clear, the defense of this guy is incredibly expensive, incredibly, the bandwidth is huge. So that county may not have the bandwidth to handle that. And it may just be, hey, we need to get somebody from the outside to do that. And that's why you have local counsel, and you can bring outside people in to do it. This is a once in a lifetime kind of trial for a community, by the way. This is probably not something they've ever seen the likes of. The amount of witnesses, the amount of, and again, death penalty raises all the stakes. So I'm not shocked that they have an outsider, and this may just be something they do on a regular basis when they have these kind of cases.
Interesting, Franz. So let's talk also about the fact that this is a court appointment. This was something that sparked a big discussion in our newsroom. So when a public defender's office in any county has a conflict, a couple things can happen. There may be a local office of conflict counsel. Where I practiced, there was, and so you go to that office first. If you strike out there, if there's a conflict there, you go to attorneys who will take court appointments, and that would be someone in the private sector, like you gentlemen, perhaps. Someone who's working privately but would be kind enough to take an appointment from the court. Franz, you mentioned the money being so high. I got a couple numbers. This prosecution's estimated to exceed $1.3 million to $750,000 for the court-appointed lawyers and $600,000 for the additional staff in the county attorney's office. Matt Timpanik, do those numbers surprise you?
Not really, no. When you think about this is a capital case. This is probably a year-long case, and towards the end of this trial, these lawyers are going to be probably working 12 to 16 hours a day minimum. So when you think of all that goes into a capital case, you got to think of, like you said, the individuals who are on. He has 3 attorneys. They have support staff, the court costs associated with all the clerks doing it, and all with the jail fees of having him incarcerated. When you look at it, that's not an outrageous number. It does pop off the page, but for a death penalty case, because in order for a conviction to succeed and to be upheld on appeal, there needs to be proof that there was competent counsel. And you have somebody who represented Lyle Menendez, as well as 2 other experienced attorneys, that's going to survive appellate scrutiny. So the investment in this case is worth not having to do this again in the future for some kind of an appeal for ineffective assistance of counsel.
Great points, Matt. Thank you. I want to play a clip for you, gentlemen, from the judge. Let's take a listen to what this newly appointed, by the way, judge said at the most recent hearing.
I remain steadfast in my oath that I made 56 days ago to support and defend the constitutions of the United States and of Utah. I will carry out my duties with fidelity, transparency, and impartiality, treating every person who appears before me with the dignity and respect they are inherently due because they are human beings. Let me be clear, I will not put my finger on the scale of justice.
Oh, I like him. Franz, what do you think? Wow, what a statement.
Well, it sounds good. I will tell you that it's often not the case that we have judges that have to talk about how fair they're going to be. And in fact, I hate to be this guy, Julie, but when we start having people making those kind of pronouncements, it kind of makes you feel like, wait, was that ever in question? Like, is he protesting too much? I like him. I think he is probably a fair and great guy. I don't like it when they have to make those kind of pronouncements in an open court, because it's like, dude, you don't have to tell us that. We assume that. You're a judge. You got the black robe on. You don't need to tell us that you're not going to put your finger on, and by the way, if you do act unfairly, guess what? We're all going to have to do this a second time. So I'm a little weirded out by that, Julie. I don't, maybe I'm off the page on this. It made me a little uncomfortable when I heard it.
Okay, fair enough, Franz. Matt, your thoughts on the judge?
I agree. I was cringing while he was saying that. In this type of situation, this is a death penalty case, and you're hearing that I took the oath 56 days ago. I was a little stunned that you have on a capital case what appears to be potentially a new judge. So when I heard that speech, I was just kind of like, that's to be expected. This doesn't need to be said. I don't know if Utah elects its judges or it appoints them, but it felt very political to me. That is just like, I'm telling you I'm going to uphold the oath and I'm not going to put my fingers on the scale of justice. That's usually somebody who says something before they aren't really impartial and they put their finger on the scale of justice.
Wow. Well, you know, fair enough. You know, I respect you too tremendously. So of course I respect your opinions and welcome them. I'm just surprised. That's all. Yeah. But hey, this is why we're having this discussion. So let us know at home what you think. I'm going to stick up for the judge. I liked hearing that, especially because there's so much chirping in the Wild West court of public opinion. I'm glad to see him bring it on home and say, look, I'm going to uphold the law and do what I've been sworn to do. We got to look into how he got this case so early. I feel sorry for him getting that, like just taking the bench. And so maybe that's an idea for our next segment, how he seemed to draw the short straw here. This case is awful. Again, the victim, Charlie Kirk. Of course, we always want to remember the victims here on opening statements. He is the victim in this case.